she took a hand. Eating on the jaw. Take a cherry. You got a fight? And Mingy's coming after you. Why don't you call Ostby the right name instead of saying gypsy? You should say traveller or Romani.
You were probably learnt when you were at school. My mother taught me I never should play with the gypsies down in the wood.
If we can't be seen, we're not there, are we? So if we're out of sight, we're out of their mind. These things should come out in the open.
Christine is a Romani. She's part of an ethnic minority. But in English law, her lifestyle also defines her as a gypsy. The very word has become a gross insult. The lives of children like these could be drastically changed from that of their parents if new government plans become a reality. Critics say the proposals are nothing short of ethnic cleansing. Since 1968, councils have been required by law to provide sites for gypsies. The quality of some of those sites is appalling. Prejudice and local opposition has meant slow progress, and 20 years on, only 1 in 3 councils has complied. The government now intends to end that requirement and encourage those already on council sites into housing. Alternatively, travellers will have to find their own sites. The penalties for not doing so are stiff. Remaining anywhere without permission, even if there's nowhere else to go, will become a criminal offence.
They're talking about taking people's homes away. They're talking about arresting people. It's going to cause confrontation. People are not going to stand for that. You know, they're not going to put up with that sort of thing.
I think it's unworkable, and if it is ever pushed through, it will become a national disaster. Hello, Gypsy Liaison, can I help you?
Graham Jones is Gypsy Liaison Officer for Essex County Council. He's a gorger. That's a significant word from the Romani language. It means non-gypsy.
Can you give me some details on what the problem is? Because we wouldn't normally move travellers
It's gorgers who make the laws and gorgers like Graham who daily bridge the gulf between two very different cultures. Essex has one of Britain's highest proportions of Romani people. Around 300 families are on sites, 200 are on the roadside. That's almost as many as in the 1960s. To many gorgers, nothing has changed. Gypsies are still a problem.
The first 2 travellers are willing to move off within the next week. I'm just going to see these travellers here, and I think they've actually...
that one and this one are going anyway.
Well, I'm just going to see this traveller here now.
What about this ditch full of rubbish?
Well, that'll be up to us to clear. Up to the council.
Rubbish. The limited view of gypsies is not of the vast majority, but of those on the roadside. Hello. And rubbish.
Hello, sorry to trouble you. I've just been... Can I ask you not to stay around, in fairness? You can see I've got a bit of a problem with the Thaxted Parish Council's opinion on the travellers on the side of the road here. I'm the Gypsy Liaison Officer for Essex, that's who I am. What I'm going to have to ask you to do is to move on. I can give you some time, for a week or so. Can you find somewhere else in that time?
Well, or shall I must too, shall I?
I mean...
There ain't a lot of places to go now, is there?
Hey, that's
ain't a lot of places to go now, is there?
That's the trouble, I understand that. Okay then.
Yeah, all right,
Thanks
yeah.
ever so much.
Thanks very much.
God bless.
Cheerio.
Bye. Yeah. You see, this is certainly not those families up there. I know those families up there. Fellas, you see, you've got to look at it this way. And I'm not being an apologist for them, but you have to look at it this way. That is in your bin at home. All of that. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the ideal world, we'd actually provide them with bins, and they would use them if we did.
But we are paying rates.
Absolutely. Now, there's,
No.
but I mean, you might ask the question, which do you prefer? Bags collected at a cost by Dunmow Parish Council, by Uttlesford Parish Council, or the mess? You're saying neither. The County Council has a very enlightened policy because it recognises that simply to move a family from A to B does nothing other than to incur the wrath of the family at B and ease the pain of the family at A. The difficulty these days is also compounded by the size of the encampments. If you've got 2 or 3 families there, that's not a problem. But if you've got 10 families there, then people in the neighbourhood feel that they're threatened.
There's age-old mistrust between the two communities, but the threats to the gypsy community are perhaps less apparent. It's difficult for many gorgers to gain much of an understanding of gypsy life and culture when few knock on doors to find out. Graham's official position as a link between the two worlds has given him a strong personal view. Many gypsies, especially those on the few remaining roadside sites, are feeling increasingly isolated.
Years ago, there were plenty of places where the gypsies could stay. Farmers were glad to see them in the seasons. But now, where perhaps 5 years ago there were 10 places they could stay, there are now probably only 3. And that means that the pressure on those 3 places is higher, and the amount of opposition from local people in those 3 places, where previously there wouldn't be any, is higher as well. The means of earning a living is greatly reduced. The opportunities for earning a living in a recession is particularly hitting gypsy people, so they're struggling. And very many gypsies are now very poor, and that's having a profound effect on their way of life.
This is Wood Corner in Wood and Walter near Malden, a traditional stopping place for travellers. It's now what Essex County Council terms a tolerated site. Sylvie and Rosie Loveridge and their families have been here for more than 20 years. The 1968 Act and the courts both recognised that there was little point moving travellers on from sites like this unless there was somewhere for them to go. Knowing that society wants them off the roadside, they, like many others, are waiting for a council pitch. With luck, they won't have far to go. Here at Wood Corner, the council is working on a site just behind the hedge. Over the last 20 years, council sites have almost always been in the most inappropriate places. This is something of an exception. It's not next to a waste tip, a railway or a motorway. But Sylvie and her daughter-in-law Daphne question why it needs to be below ground level and hidden away.
Where they've got the pitches and now they've got the fencing and everything. I mean, that's not too much of a problem. No. That's the problem. We're down in a holler. And as I said before, what goes on them fields has got to come off, and it'll blow off one way or the other, winter, summer, whatever. And where there's a pit, there's a hole, it'll blow in, it'll land. That's where it'll settle.
My problem is going to be when I go back.
Graham is acting as a sort of intercultural go-between. There's a public meeting tonight at the village hall to discuss the site. The parish council wants it smaller. The county's planners would like it hidden. Those who are to live there fear that being out of sight is out of mind.
No, because I'll tell you for why. When it's in the summer, it'll be boiling hot, and in the winter, I'll guarantee that'll flood.
Flood?
Yes, that will.
Because
you've got his scooping, ain't you? You've got his scooping.
It shouldn't do, because the whole drainage system is bringing it down.
The fencing, the warden by the gate also bring much deeper fears, especially to the older people like Rosie. Memories run deep. An even higher proportion of gypsies were exterminated in the war than Jews.
Was it brother you lost?
Yeah. Well said, you know.
You see it, the fencing you see as a concentration
That's what I
camp?
mean. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it puts me in the mind of Russia. They want to put you in a concentration camp and that's it, let it go. But that's not right. I mean, you fancy.
You come in tonight?
Yeah, definitely come.
The latest sites may not be perfect, but they are much better than the early ones. Utility blocks, space and lawns provide some compensation for having to come off the road. This site at Writtle near Chelmsford is relatively new and represents perhaps the latest in gorger design. Council sites like this one at Harlow fall short of everyone's ideal. It started 15 years ago as a transit site, but with nowhere for anyone to move to, became permanent, a shanty town. People pay rent to live here. It's on an industrial estate, hidden by high earth banks, has only chemical toilets, and is often overrun with rats. The council say they can't improve such places without continued government money.
Well, this is an example of a site that's probably amongst the worst, and yet people have to live in it. There are a family here with children aged 8, 5 and 2, and that's their toilet. And that's the total surface area they've got to live on. And this here is their plumbing system. Now from this comes the bath water, the drinking water, 2 taps. And it seems to me that if you're expecting people to live in these sort of conditions, that you're simply inviting social unrest. And I think that the government has got to take this into account when they're looking at the whole question of the grants that they're giving for these sites. Now this site is scheduled to be rebuilt into a decent, respectable site that people can take pride in. But it's unlikely to happen if the government withhold the grants. Now we're fairly desperate as a county council to have these sites rebuilt and done. And the difficulty we have, look at this young lad here now playing with the tap water. Where's he got to play? And where can he play on a site like this? And yet these are the children of the future, and the fact that they're gypsy children means very little, because they should have every much the same right as every other child, but they don't have it while they're on here, and unless we can spend the money, then we're going to be lost.
By all means, put a 12-pit site down on Wood Corner, but only go forward if it is a 12-pit site, and please...
Gypsy sites provoke strong emotions. At Wood and Walter, however, the Romanis have been at Wood Corner for so long, the plan for a site is generally accepted. The feeling is that this should be a small site for around 12 families. The argument is with the county, who are forced by government guidelines to argue for a 20-pitch site.
There's some concern about the size of the pitch. The reason that the size of the pitch is...
Not many gypsies stand up to be heard and fight their corner. Even here, with little open antagonism, those who are going to live on the site feel intimidated, left isolated and frustrated at the back of the hall. As usual, it's the gorgers doing the talking.
And the only thing against seeking those better solutions is that you can solve your problem in one go, and I don't think that's why you should be there.
Eventually, Sylvie feels compelled to say her piece as well.
Education Act 1944 to provide schools for all pupils.
I've got to come up the front.
Good idea. Well done.
Now, we have the advantage of Sylvie standing here. She would like to say something. She is a resident of this parish, as you know. We would like to hear what you have to say.
Oh, for one site, I agree with you. For a small caravan site, I do agree with you. And look, you local people, we don't want the gypsies here, we don't want the gypsies there. Why don't you call us by the right name instead of saying gypsy? You should say traveller or Romani. You say gypsies this, gypsies dirty. I'll tell you something now. I'll bet you a gypsy is cleaner than what some of yous are in here. No, then, no, I'm just telling you. Yeah, any time you can come to my caravan and you'll see it. And I'll prove it. I've been here over 30 years, and there's no moving me. I'm the wrong one. If the others can't speak up for themselves, I can speak up for myself. Okay? I'm speaking me piece. They keep finding fault on us in there. Listen, they keep finding fault on us in there. Yeah. But they can't tell us to our face what they want.
No.
The people in that hall at the moment think that the only amount of caravans and the only amount of travellers they've got to deal with is a Wood and Water group.
They ain't.
But they haven't.
No.
They've got travellers all over the world. They've got travellers all over Britain. And they've got travellers that are in a lot worse positions than we are. They've probably got mums with young kids that's got no dads to help them. And yet they worry about the site that they're going to build at Wood and Water for the people. And as far as their site's concerned,
I'll walk straight
I'm
through
not
there.
particularly bothered at the moment whether I go on it or not.
This is coming like the Indian tribe. Put you out of sight, out of mind. I told you they want to put you out of sight, out of mind.
No, I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to lose my temper with them, because I will lose my temper.
I would. Yeah, we're going home.
Good night.
We didn't know you had it.
You won't tell somebody how to go down the paper.
that an Englishman or Englishwoman should lead?
I'm going to be quite honest with it. I don't like them, and that's that.
Either they conform to the standards that we should require, or else they go elsewhere.
The 1968 Caravan Sites Act was designed to end such scenes, but there are still families illegally parked by the roadside. Was the Act fundamentally flawed, or was it simply not enforced?
It's quite clear the legislation hasn't worked. I think local authorities, local authority organisations, the police, members of Parliament all recognise that the Caravan Sites Act hasn't worked, it isn't working properly, that a new course needs to be charted. I think there is broad support, broad public support for the general principle that no one objects to travellers having their own lifestyle, but they should make their own provision for that lifestyle.
I don't think we should see it as a failure, as the government is saying. Even by government figures, 62% of gypsies or travellers living in caravans in this country are legally sighted. That's a massive improvement compared with the 1960s.
The Act was working slowly, working quite well in a few areas, but generally that people concerned with its administration, particularly at the government level and at the county council level, didn't have their heart in it.
Professor Wibberley was asked to review the workings of the Act 5 years ago and concluded that it was a success, albeit a slow one. Then the government accepted his findings.
One way of handling a minority, and the gypsy problem is really a small minority, is to put some public money and support with it. Another way, of course, is to say we're not going to accept there's a problem, and we're just going to let gypsies be forced into either permanent housing or into bits of land that they can get hold of, and to be moved on and live with that sort of thing. It's sad to me that the government has now allowed themselves to, in a minor way, take a sort of ethnic cleansing approach to it. In other words, this is a minority and we'll just push them out of the way by not doing anything about it.
If we went back to the era of the 1960s, when, you know, people were, I mean, they couldn't disappear. They're not going to disappear. They'd just be pushed on, impoverished, hatred and bitterness stirred up. I mean, I can't believe that anybody seriously wants to bring those days back.
Gorgeous society has come a long way in the last 25 years. Much of gypsy society is also changing. These born-again Christians are part of the Gypsy and Travellers Evangelical movement, one of the fastest-growing churches in Britain. What hasn't changed is much of the ignorance, distrust and underlying prejudice felt by both cultures.
You were probably learnt when you were at school. My mother told me I never should play with the gypsies down in the wood, right? We were told you don't see the gypsies attacking the children on the television. You understand? You don't see the gypsies robbing banks on the television. You don't see the gypsies burglaring and doing all serious crimes on the television. It's always a non-gypsy. So a great gulf was set. We were reared to be afraid of you. You were reared to be afraid of us. A few weeks ago, I was at a place called Knapp Hill. It's near Woking in Surrey. And the police came there in number. And they made us get outside, stand outside, where I took all of our photographs. And I said to the one that was there, I said, why? Why do you want to take our photographs? I don't just mean me, there were about 20 caravans of us together. And they stood every one of us inside the caravan, took photographs of us all, just in case anything might happen. Right? So I said to them, this is not Nazi Germany, you know. I said, you're not Rudolf Hess or Dr. Mengele. I said, this is supposed to be United Kingdom, where racism doesn't exist. I said, yet you're photographing us up the side of our homes in case something happens. They still did it.
Gorgia preconceptions, good and bad, of Romani language, history, culture and cleanliness are often based on nothing more than old wives' tales. Prejudice is often born of ignorance.
So as you can see it here, it's got a set of drawers. Here's an airing cupboard. There's the central heating, a wardrobe there. This is the bedroom. These doors come across. There's another wardrobe, and this is the bed that goes up or down. And here, this is the fridge, gas and electric. And as you can see, there's no sink. It's because it was ordered without a sink. Because according to our culture, we have a word in our language called mochadi, which means unclean. And for gypsies, they don't like to have a sink. They have no sink, they have no tap, they have no toilet compartment, they have no shower, in order of cleanliness within the home. Because they have a strict code of practice where they have special cloths for cleaning, special bowls for cleaning. Certain areas are only cleaned with certain things. Rather like Levitical law to the Jews.
They want museum pieces. They want gypsies living in horse and wagons. They're acceptable. You know, you can pull on the village green with a horse and wagon. Oh, everybody come out and photograph you. Oh, lovely, real gypsies. They might not be any more gypsy than anybody else. His brother could turn up with a big chrome trailer and there'd be an uproar. Oh, we can't, these are tinkers. We can't have them living here.
A common fallacy often quoted suggests that there are only a few real Romanis left, that they are somehow acceptable, and that the rest are tinkers, diddycoys, and that it's these people who need somehow to be dealt with. At best, this attitude is based on ignorance, at worst, closet racism.
All we really want is the fact that we are the same as everybody else. We're human beings, and there's good, there's bad, and indifferent. And it's got nothing to do with being true Romani, half gypsy, diddykai, whatever the stupid words they want to use, because it's all racist rubbish. We want to get rid of all that racism. We are human beings. That's the bottom line. We live in caravans. We want somewhere to stop.
There's either a human right for people who want, for cultural or personal reasons, who can pay their way and don't cause a nuisance, to live in a caravan on the same basis as some people can live in a house, or there's no right at all, and I think there should be a right.
The government suggests that gypsies might be encouraged into housing, but the majority of travellers would have no more interest in living in a house than house dwellers in a caravan.
There are 750,000 non-gypsies living in caravans. It's acceptable for non-gypsies to live in caravans, yet they're trying to force gypsies, which is their traditional home, out of caravans into houses. There aren't any houses. There are people living in cardboard boxes, in case the government hadn't noticed. You know, hundreds of thousands of people living in cardboard boxes. You know, they're now proposing to take away homes that people have provided for themselves and force them into what they call housing. Where is the housing? You know, where are these people supposed to go?
Onto their own private sites. That's the government plan. It's basically a good idea, but it's almost impossible to find or afford somewhere that already has planning permission for a caravan. For most people, the only practical option is to buy a parcel of land, improve it, and trust to luck. Sylvie Dunn tried that. She's been refused planning permission on this site 3 times. She faces the prospect of being forced off her own land and back onto the road. And under the new law, that could make her a criminal.
I've got no chance whatsoever when I go out on that road, and the order that was against me is up now, so I'm just waiting for them to come and evict me. When I go out on that road, I should be shortly I should be in prison because of the new law.
The government are now saying that there won't be any more sites within the Green Belt, because gypsies in the past, in the right circumstances, have had some concession in the Green Belt. They're now going to be forced into the urban areas, and how many towns have got locations where you can put a gypsy site? There aren't any. So effectively, in one fell swoop, if the government's consultation document comes through, it's my personal opinion that there simply won't be anywhere where a private site can be built.
So any suggestion that gypsies in the future will be able to make their own provision for private sites is a nonsense?
Well, if the government's proposals are put into effect, it's just not likely to happen. It won't happen.
They will be treated exactly the same as any other applicant for planning permission, and if at any time it's felt that the planning system is not treating them fairly, then the whole of the planning system has checks and balances, the ability to appeal to independent inspectors, the ability to appeal to the Secretary of State, the ability, if needs be, to take matters to the High Court to ensure that local authorities do apply apply the planning system fairly.
It's cost the owner of this site around £6,000 in fines and legal costs fighting eviction orders. The district council refused planning permission for this mobile home. On appeal, an inspector overturned that decision and granted permission. Since then, the Secretary of State has overruled the inspector.
Conifers are all beginning to grow up now, so everything is beginning to take shape.
Henry Woolhead spent 4 years cleaning up this one-time scrapyard into a place suitable for a family. But like many others, he feels there's a planning bias against caravans. His last resort in his bid to stay here is an appeal to the High Court.
They throw me off now. I've got nowhere to go at all. I've got to take my family in a little trailer like that and live alongside the road. I'm alongside the road, well, how long? 3 or 4 days and I should be moved on. And then they're going to try and move me out the county. That's what they're trying to do. They don't want no gypsies at all in this area. I've got nowhere to go at all.
How does that make you feel?
Makes me feel, well, it makes me feel like doing a tape and going on the road and committing suicide.
Why?
Because of my family. And how much could it be? Now, what I do with my family? You know, we've got nowhere to go.
The unfinished site at Wood Corner is now flooded, much as Rosie predicted. The government's new proposals mean it may never be used. There's widespread belief that unamended, those proposals spell the start of yet more human misery.
The whole way of life is changing, and unless we actually make a provision to meet that, you know, there isn't any future for Gypsy people of any kind, and I don't just mean that the way of life will change, but you're going to have an enormous tragedy.
It's basically a racist law. You know, I mean, they're actually saying there that this is meant specifically for Gypsies. Not for New Age travellers. It says that in the Green Paper. So I do feel it is like ethnic cleansing.
If it implements them and fines people for being where they are when there's nowhere for them to go, it won't work, it won't be enforced, but it will cause misery and impoverishment.